Good morning, and welcome to Fellowship Church Online. My name is Laura. I'm the Executive Director of Ministry Services here at FC, and if this is your first time checking out FC Online, we are so glad you're here. If you're looking for info about Fellowship Church or upcoming events, I want to encourage you to check out our website at fellowshipchurchct.com. On the homepage, you'll find an area where you can fill out a connection card. This is your go-to in getting connected at FC. When you fill that out, you'll be able to receive email updates and announcements, so you'll be in the know about everything going on here at FC. There's also a place on the connection card to fill out prayer requests. Our pastors and leaders would love to pray for you. Fill out one today. We would love to know that you are here. I would like to thank all of you that are giving regularly to Fellowship. Your giving allows us to continue our programs here at FC, as well as to continue being a blessing to others locally and around the world. We sincerely appreciate your generosity. If you'd like to give, you can do so through our website, on our app, or by texting Fellowship CT to 833-245-6507. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the service.
Lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Yes, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. Oh, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
I'm alive! I'm alive!
Yeah?
Yeah! Oh, yeah! Hey! the power works. It's coming. It goes on and off whenever we want. We've got clean water. Oh, that's great. Look at that. Ooh. I bet I know what this does. Rain down the glorious water. Ah, shoes. Oh, what do we got here, guys? Food. I love food. A beef steak? You gonna have work? This is awesome. Look, listen here. Dee, the what?
Jack, be careful!
Oh, I have a car. This is great. Did you guys see this?
Yeah, you have a car!
A car!
And don't forget your coffee.
You're the best.
Hey, good morning. My name is Ross. I'm the student pastor here at Fellowship, here to continue our series called Gratitude Adjustment. And hey, what about that video you just watched? How hilarious was that? And you know why it was funny? Because it's true. There's so many things that we wake up and take for granted that we have. There's so many things and people in our lives that we can be so thankful for and have gratitude, but sometimes we just fail to show our thanks, right? And I think this series is so important right now, especially with these next couple months, with November, December, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Really, it is a season of gratitude and thankfulness and generosity. And so that's why we're in this series right now, because we could all use a gratitude adjustment from time to time. And really, as cheesy it is to say, with everything going on in the world around us, or something that may be going on within your life, we can really miss out on the virtue of gratitude, of Thanksgiving, not the holiday, but the action of Thanksgiving, and how important it is to have gratitude in our lives, to ground us, to give us a healthy perspective for our lives as well, because practicing a virtue like gratitude is hard. Every virtue takes work. That's why it's called a virtue to begin with. But here's the thing, every virtue is going to have its vice, the opposite of the virtue, a vice that just keeps you down and holds you from being able to experience greater things in your life. And if we're going to talk about gratitude this series, I think it's important to talk about its enemy. And I believe its enemy, the vice here, is called entitlement. That's the vice that really diminishes our sense of gratitude in our life. And here's the thing about entitlement. With entitlement, we focus on what we don't have rather than what we do. See, entitlement in our society, it's like an airborne virus, and it's a pervasive attitude of having what I'm owed, of getting what I deserved, and being able to have what everyone else has because I deserve it as well. Now, in the realm of equality, it totally makes sense, right? That when it comes to our rights, entitlement is totally appropriate there, but when entitlement seeps into materialistic things, when it's about fairness of what's owed to me and how hard I work, and it comes out of a prideful, a selfish mentality, that's when it becomes a vice in our life, when we think that we're owed something. And think about this. In our culture today, we can order pizza or some food off of Grubhub and have it within 30 minutes or so. Or you can order a package onto Amazon and have it there shipped to you the next day or in 2 days. But what happens when our food arrives cold? Or we didn't get what we ordered and our order was incorrect. Or our package takes 3 days instead of 1 or 2 days to get to us. What do? Because of entitlement, we'll complain. Oh, I can't believe my food is cold. I can't believe the package it was here late. This permeates in our day-to-day. The lines are so long at the grocery store. They should open up more registers. Oh, the service was so busy here. They took too long on getting my order. All these things that happen, and because of this entitlement attitude, what ends up happening is we all turn into a bunch of Karens. Now, if you don't know what that meme sort of is with Karens, I just, encourage you to go to YouTube, look up Karen freakouts, and you know what I'm talking about. But that's just a little joke there. If you got it, it was funny. But here's the thing. That's what entitlement will do. We'll become complainers and tend to complain about everything else around us because we're entitled to something. But here's the thing, with entitlement, we also push that on as a title towards kids or the next generation. Oh, they're so entitled. They want everything to be handed for them. They don't know what it's like to work. They don't know what it was like when I was their age. They're so entitled. They're so ungrateful for what they have. When I was their age, I was working 3 jobs and going to college. When I was their age, I knew how to build an entire airplane. When I was their age, I walked to and from school 5 miles in 10 feet of snow, that whole thing, right? We push entitlement on to the next age a lot of times. But here's the thing. What made the next generation so entitled? The generation before it, right? And but here's the thing. This entitlement, it really is something that culture imposes on us. Culture imposes an entitled spirit upon us, and we all bought into it. This feeling of entitled and having what I'm owed, having what I deserve, having what everyone else has, and I am the main character in the story of the world. Even marketers will try to convince you when buying their product that you deserve it. You worked hard. Everyone else has this product. You should have it too. You had a hard year. You had a hard time this past year. You deserve to have this thing in your life. And here's the thing. With all this, I'm not demonizing stuff. I'm not demonizing having nice things and food. But hey, I'm making a point of how we've all been groomed for entitlement. How culture imposes this entitled spirit upon us. But what all this does really is create false expectations for our lives. When we think we deserve something or entitled to something and it doesn't happen, we don't get what we want, doesn't go our way, it can leave you feeling empty, angry, salty, toxic, negative, and ungrateful. Entitlement just breeds more negativity into our lives. And here's another important thing when it comes to us as followers of Christ. Entitlement can be brought into our relationship with Jesus. This mentality that God should do X, Y, and Z for me because I'm doing X, Y, Z for him. Or I expected God to show up here and I expected God would keep this or stop this from happening in my life. And we can bring this entitlement attitude when it comes to God. Hey, God, I've deserved this. I've deserved this blessing in my life. Why don't you stop this from happening? I'm doing all the right things, God. We can bring that same entitlement in to our relationship with God and start complaining towards him, blaming him or blaming other people instead of blaming ourselves for having false expectations and having a false perspective on who God is in our life and our relationship with him. So with entitlement, it brings false expectations, and with false expectations, it brings us in a constant pursuit after things that we think are going to make us happy. And when I'm happy, that means I'm going to be more grateful in my life. Pastor Andy talked about this last week. He asked the question, hey, what is your number? What's the number that's going to make you happy and going to make you more grateful for what you have in your life? And here's the thing. That's what we think. We think if I could just achieve this or have success here or get to this point, then that is going to make me more happy and joyful in my life. But here's the thing. That's just not true. And it's due to something psychologists call the hedonic adaptation. So hedonic adaptation is the observed tendency of humans to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or life changes. To put it more simply, we get used to the good things that happen. We get used to the bad things that happen. We'll have temporary happiness for a little bit when something good happens, but we'll return and then we'll just be pursuing the next thing to make us happy. Same when something bad happens, even though it's in that moment it may be very sad and it's heartbreaking and it may take you months, years to come out of that, you'll eventually return to a stable level of happiness due to this adaptation. So it's like a survival mechanism, so that we remain happy. We're constantly pursuing and doing the best that we can in our lives. But here's the thing. It's also a danger. This sort of adaptation can kill our marriages because we get so used to the partner that we've been with for so long. It can kill your relationships with your significant other because you don't see the same positives as you used to, and you start complaining. You see more negatives because you just got used to that person in your life. It's the same with your job. You may be working a job for years and you feel like it's lost its purpose. And now you're like, maybe I should switch jobs, or maybe I should move to another place and start something new. Maybe I should go to a different church because I'm just not seeing, the happiness in my life at where I'm at. And so this is also called the hedonic treadmill, because it's like you're on a treadmill constantly pursuing after things to get ahead and to make you happy. But when you're on a treadmill, you can only go a little forward and then you'll just stabilize back into place. And so with constantly pursuing one pleasure after another to make you happy, it's just not going to work. And we can't look at that and say, if I just have that, then I'll be happy. And then when I'm happy, I'll be more grateful. I'll show more gratitude when I have what I want. Because all that comes from is this vice of entitlement. And here's the thing, with this hedonic adaptation, when you read about this online, gratitude is the number one skill and virtue to develop and practice to fight this adaptation. To realize you don't have to pursue one thing after another. When you practice gratitude, you can have happiness and joy within your life because you realize all that you have around you. Here's the thing, I want to read a story today that really shows that entitlement ends when gratitude begins. And in the story, I want to pull 3 principles from it that we can apply to our lives. So the story is found in Luke chapter 17, verse 11. It says this, "Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. And as he was going into the village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, 'Jesus, Master, have pity on us.'" So here's the thing that you need to know about people with leprosy in biblical times is that they had societal and religious implications due to their leprosy. So societally, they were outcasted, quarantined. We know what that's like, right? They were quarantined outside the city. And also, because of their disease, they were seen as ceremonially unclean, spiritually unclean. They weren't allowed to go to temple. And if they can't go to temple, they can't be right with God. They can't make sacrifices. And so they are outcasted by their society and their religion as well. And so this is a huge deal. And when lepers would approach anybody that, on the side of the road, they would have to yell out, "Unclean, unclean." So people knew, don't come near me. I have a disease, you might catch it, but you'll also be unclean as well. And so due to this, lepers would find themselves in leper colonies. That's where Jesus comes across these 10 guys who have leprosy. And so they confront Jesus and they say, "Have mercy on us. Will you help us, Jesus?" And so this is what Jesus says when Jesus saw them, he said, "Go show yourself to the priests." Now this is important because in that time when you had a disease and you thought you were better, you could show yourself to the priest and they would essentially inspect you and say, "Okay, you're good. You can join society. You can go to temple again." And so that's what Jesus is doing here. Hey, go to the priests, and as you're going, you're going to be healed. And that's what happened. It says that as they went, they were cleansed. They were healed of their leprosy. Now here's where the story gets interesting, what I want you to pay attention till today. It says this, one of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." 10 guys, their life was completely changed. They were healed, but only one of them had the correct response and expressed gratitude to the one who deserved it. Only one had the right response and returned to Jesus to say thank you. What's so interesting about this story is that I think it's a window into the human condition. That really, that's a statistic there that 9 out of 10 of us struggle with expressing gratitude towards others and to God for the things that we have in our life. It really is a window into that. You would expect these people who had a miraculous healing in their life to thank the person who healed them of this horrible disease, but they didn't. And that's really a window into our condition, this entitlement condition that, I deserved this in my life. I earned this. This was all me. And we can forget to thank the one who has done it all, who has given it all for us. So here's the first principle I want to share with you guys from this story. Number one, gratitude has the power to strengthen relationships. See, all 10 lepers, they had an interaction with Jesus. They had some experience and exposure to him, but only 9 of them had a skin-deep relationship, that they were healed on the outside. But this man, he comes back, he expresses his thankfulness, he praises, and Jesus says something to him different. He says, your faith has made you well. Your faith has saved you. So what's happening here? Not only was this man physically healed, like the 10 of them were, but only one of them was spiritually healed. He got to experience something different from the other 9 because he had a different perspective on who Jesus was. His gratitude, he expressed it. His thankfulness moved him in the direction to expressing it back to Jesus. And he got to experience something that the other 9 didn't get to experience. Now here's the thing for our lives when it comes to this as well, is when we express gratitude, it's going to strengthen your relationship. Just as this guy got to experience something greater with God, when we express gratefulness towards our Creator, towards our Heavenly Father, we'll experience a stronger and a deeper relationship. It's the same thing when it comes to, other relationships in your life. When you express gratitude and thankfulness to your spouse, to your kids, to the people who work for you or the people that you work for, whatever it is, your friends in your life, when you express thankfulness, it's going to deepen and strengthen that relationship with that person. We know that. But here's the thing, the absence of gratitude will lead to a weakening of your relationship with people. When you fail to show gratitude, when you fail to express your thankfulness, it will also weaken your faith towards God as well, because that's when entitlement's going to creep in. Like, hey, I've earned this. I worked for it. I deserved it. I've been a good boy. I've been a good girl. I had this coming for me. And so it can weaken the relationships in our life when we fail to express gratitude. But here's the thing. With entitlement, we're only looking for that skin deep level relationship a lot of time. We're only looking for what God can do externally in our lives, how we can fix our external circumstances, how we can meet our expectations for our life rather than what he really wants to do on the inside of us, which is what he did for this man who had been healed in the story. Not only was he physically healed on the outside externally, he was healed on the inside. He experienced something deeper within his soul that the other 9 did not get to experience. And when you practice a gratitude and you express it towards God and the other people in your life, your relationships will always be strengthened and you'll experience something deeper. This leads us to number 2, though, is that though we can be grateful and thankful in our lives, it doesn't mean anything unless we express it. Which leads us to principle number 2. Gratitude not expressed is gratitude not experienced. So what was different about this one leper? Was it that he felt grateful? My guess is that maybe the other guys felt grateful. They were probably thankful, right? They were healed of this disease that they maybe had for years. Their skin's falling off and they're ceremonial unclean. They're outcasts of society. I'm sure that they were very thankful that they have been healed. They were very happy, momentarily that they had been healed. I don't know, really. I can't really say from the story whether they felt entitled or not. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm sure that they were grateful. But here's the thing. Gratefulness not expressed is gratefulness not experienced. I mean, we won't experience the benefits of what gratitude has in our life unless we express it. Gratitude doesn't mean anything to the other person unless it's expressed as well. So that's important for any relationship in our life, right? I'm sure when it comes to your relationships at home, with your significant other, that when they do something for you, you are thankful, right? When maybe your wife or husband makes dinner for you, you are thankful, but unless you express that towards them, the other person may not feel like you are thankful. And I'm sure some of you sitting here today know what I'm talking about. When you do something nice for somebody else and you don't receive the gratitude, what you start to feel is, maybe this person isn't thankful for what I'm doing. Maybe they aren't not appreciative towards me. Maybe they've taken advantage of me. Maybe they don't know how good they have it. Do they love me? And that can leave us just feeling a weakening in a relationships, just like principle 1. But when we fail to express it, it means that it's not being experienced by both parties, the gratitude. So here's the thing, gratitude not expressed is going to be experienced as either rejection or entitlement on behalf of the person who fails to express it. And we know that to be true, like we said with other relationships in our life. Man, when even when it comes to our work and we feel like we're being unappreciated for the work that we're doing in our jobs, and it feels like the boss never says thank you, it kind of makes us feel purposeless, like we're dispensable sometimes. And the same for people who maybe work for you. Maybe you have people who work under you, and you know that's what that's like as well. Man, I should be expressing gratefulness for the people under me. And if it's not expressed, then what experienced by the other person is going to feel like rejection or entitlement. Like, oh, I guess they expect me to do this for them. They expect me to just be this person and do these things for them, but they don't really appreciate me as a person and what I do. Here's the thing within the story that I want to mention as well that's so important. Just a small little detail. It mentions that the only person who came back to thank Jesus, it says that he was a Samaritan. It says that the only person out of the 10 that returned was a foreigner. He's the only one that came back to say thanks. Now, this is important. Why? Because in those times, Samaritans were people who were half Jewish, half Gentile. So by the Jewish people, they were kind of seen as less than, as half-breeds, that they weren't part of the chosen people of God. They could not experience the blessings of God's chosen people. They couldn't partake in the same things that we're partaking in. They're not like us. They're different. They're less than. So that's what Samaritans were seen as. So in the story, the Samaritan is kind of seen as the hero. You could also think about the story of the Good Samaritan, if you're familiar with it. A guy gets beaten up and robbed, thrown to the side of the road to die. And what happens? A priest walks by on the other side of the road and says, I'm too busy. Then a Levite, another religious leader, walks by and says, I don't want anything to do with it. But then who walks by? A Samaritan. And the Samaritan's the hero of the story that helps the man who is beaten and robbed. And the whole point was saying, hey, who's my neighbor? The Samaritan. Who's the neighbor that I'm supposed to love, God? Even the Samaritan is included. And so the Samaritan is made the hero of the story as well. Well, why? I think this story on face, just taking a look at it, there's a lot more going on to the story than we think. That there's a greater lesson being taught here to the reader who's reading the story or the person that's observing on the outside of what's going on. That Jesus was saying, hey, this Samaritan, this foreigner was the only one who came back to thank me. And I like to think that maybe this is a little nudge towards the religious leaders in that day. This was a nudge towards the people who may have felt entitled that, hey, I am God's chosen people and I deserve good things to come my way. I deserve the blessings, or I've earned the blessings, because they were so focused on the do's and don'ts, so focused on the laws that they needed to follow, thinking that would make them right with God. And so really in this story, we see the Samaritan being the hero of the story. And I think that is a little nudge to the people who may have felt entitled that day, the people who weren't expressing gratitude and thankfulness back to God, but were trying to do everything and earn everything on their own, thinking they were entitled to so many things from God and forgetting to show gratitude. So that's just a little side note in the story to be, hey, maybe this whole story is a picture to be like, yeah, these other guys did not express gratitude because they felt entitled to what was coming their way. And man, expressing gratitude is so important. And when it's not expressed, it's not experienced, which also means we're not going to experience the benefits that gratitude will have in our life unless it's expressed. We have to express it. Hey, those who practice gratitude as a habit, they think more clearly. They're mentally healthier. They're more enjoyable to be around. They're able to see positive patterns in their lives. Research at the University of California, Davis, they did studies on gratitude, and they found that grateful people have tons of benefits. They're more humble. They see if others have played a role in their success. They're more happy. They focus on what they do have rather than what they don't. They're more healthy. They have a less struggle with sickness and stress in their lives. They have more energy. The numbers also say this, that grateful people will live longer, up to 7 years, and that they will earn 7% more money. And for students and young people who are grateful, 20% are more likely to get better grades, 10 times less likely to start smoking. And listen to this, a number of studies concluded that if you will, for 5 minutes a day, do a daily gratitude journal, whether it's, writing it down, expressing it in prayer to God, meditation, talking with your family about what you're thankful for 5 minutes a day, it will increase your long-term well-being by the same amount as doubling your income. What? We look at that, we're like, no way. That it would, just showing gratefulness and gratitude for 5 minutes a day, meditating on that, talking about that, writing it down, will increase my well-being as if my income was doubled? Man, that sounds crazy, but that just goes to show you how important gratitude is in our lives, but it needs to be expressed. Gratitude that is felt is worthless unless it moves you to do something, whether it's to praise God, to thank people that are inside your lives, through words, through writing it down, through expressing it through generosity and giving, by serving other people. Man, our gratitude needs to be expressed, just like we saw happen in this story, that this man returned to Jesus and he expressed his gratitude. That leads us to principle number 3. Gratitude flows from the right perspective. As I mentioned earlier, what did Jesus do for this man that he didn't do for the other? He turns to him and says, hey, your faith has made you well. Meaning his gratitude, his thankfulness towards Jesus was driven by his faith in who he was. Meaning he had the right perspective on who Jesus was in this moment. In a moment of clarity, this man had the right perspective that he was the Messiah. He threw himself at his feet. He was praising God. He was thanking him. He saw Jesus as the Savior for who he was. He had the right perspective. He had the faith in who Jesus was, and that fueled the gratitude he had in his life. So here's the thing with all of this, with gratitude, that the goal is not, hey, I'm going to lower my expectations, have less expectations for my life, and then I'll be less entitled. No, it's about basing our expectations and setting them biblically with the right perspective. The scriptures give us so many correct expectations to have for our life, so many correct perspectives that we should have as well when it comes to gratitude and all that we have in our lives. Listen to 1 Corinthians 4:7. It says, Paul writes here, what do you have that God hasn't given you? And if everything you have is from God, why boast as though it were not a gift? He's writing this right to the church in Corinth, and he's like, hey, you guys, we know that everything that we have in our life is given to us by God. What do we have in our lives that God hasn't given us? But why do we live our lives and go around as if, hey, I earned this, I deserved it anyways. God, he deserved to give me what I have, or I earned this through my hard work. Paul is asking, hey, why do we go around and boast as if what we have isn't a gift and that we're not seeing it as a gift and every day is a gift? James writes in James 1:17, every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father who created the lights in heaven. Everything good in our world and everything perfect, it is a gift from God who has created everything. So even with all the good gifts and seeing every day and all the talents and the abilities that we have as gifts really changes the perspective in our lives. But it's also when the bad things happen to have the right perspective. Just like Pastor Andy read last week in Romans 8:17, talking about we are heirs to Christ's glory. But it says this, if we are to share in his glory, we're also to share in his suffering. That's the correct expectation to have going through life, is that we are going to have trouble. And Jesus tells us that as well. In this world, you're going to have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. That if we're to share in Christ's glory and the blessings that we're going to have in our future, we're also going to share in the suffering. We're going to have times where our expectations aren't met. And in that time, we are supposed to be grateful and thankful in all things and not for all things, right? Like we learned last week, we don't have to be grateful for everything that's happening, but we can still show gratitude and express it in all things. When we have the right perspective, gratitude will flow from our heart. The real question, and it's a tough question we got to ask ourselves, is Jesus enough? Does Jesus plus nothing equal everything for us? I remember this question being asked to me when I was in Bible college, and it really challenges me to this day, and I still remember it. At one of the chapel services we have, a speaker asked, if God never did another thing for you, is what he already did on the cross enough? Man, that really puts in perspective. If God never did another thing for my life and he never gave me another thing, would what he already has done for me be enough? And man, that is a challenging perspective. And if it's not, we may be having a spirit of entitlement rather than gratitude. Man, we really have to have the right perspective. And when we have the right perspective on who God is in our life, we have the right expectations for our lives that everything that we have is a gift from him. Nothing that we have is of our own. Everything comes from God. Everything good comes from God. Even in our suffering, we can be thankful for who God is as well. If God did not do another thing for us, is what he's already done enough. That's a challenging, really challenging perspective to have in our lives. So to sum it all up, to wrap it all up, I want you to do a challenge right now. Maybe you're sitting with somebody right next to you and you're watching this. I want you to turn to that person. I want you to tell them what you're thankful for. Or tell them, or say thank you for something that person has done for your life. If you're watching this alone, I want you to text someone right now. Someone in your family, someone you work with, someone you're close with, and just express gratitude towards that person, because the more you do it, the more you express that gratitude, the more you're going to feel the benefits it has in your life. The more you're going to have a fulfillment in your life and joy in your life. And the more that you express your gratitude, the more grateful you're going to find yourself being. So to wrap it up again, gratitude has the power to strengthen our relationships. Gratitude not expressed is gratitude not experienced. And gratitude flows from having a right perspective on who God is in our life.
Thanksgiving is less than 2 weeks away. This is a huge holiday here at Fellowship, not just because we are thankful, but because of the blessing that we can be to so many in our community. FC is one of many organizations involved in the Middletown Community Thanksgiving Project, a group that collects and distributes food for a full Thanksgiving dinner to 1,000 families here in Middletown. We are lucky enough to be the distribution site for this project, and that means we need lots of help. We are still in need of volunteers, particularly for the Tuesday distribution day. So check out the website today and see how you can help. Due to the fact that our auditorium will be full of stuffing, gravy, and all the fixings, we are going to be meeting in the LP auditorium located in the lower campus for the next 2 weeks. It's a great space, and we hope that you will join us there. On Sunday, November 28th, we are going to be having child dedications. These dedications are about the intentionality of parents and guardians bringing up their children in an effort to help them learn more about Jesus and to understand better what it means to follow him. If you're interested in participating, you can sign up on your connection card or email Rich at rich@fellowshipchurchct.com. Finally, we want to say thank you to everyone who filled and returned their Operation Christmas Child shoeboxes. They will be going out this week and will be distributed around the world to children who would otherwise not receive a Christmas gift. Thank you. Have a great rest of your Sunday and enjoy the week.